Hi, I'm Nick.
And I'm Erin.
And you're watching
Views from Women Deliver.
Hello and welcome to Views from Women Deliver. My name is Nicolas Moyer. I'm the CEO of the Canadian Council for International Cooperation, and I'm just coming out of our annual general meeting. Our members are all around us, and we're here from Vancouver to talk to you about what we're hoping to see out of this amazing conference, Women Deliver, that's being hosted in Vancouver. A conference that happens every 3 years and has come to Canada. It's an amazing moment, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that means for civil society in Canada. Really, we're doing this series. It's the first. We're introducing it to you today, but every day at 6 o'clock Pacific and at 9 a.m. Eastern, we will be sharing with you views from Women Deliver, insights about what's happening here, and what you should be keeping in mind as we go through this conference and we try to process what it means for us in Canada and civil society and women's rights and gender equality around the globe. And so it's a pleasure to be doing this with the Canadian Council for International Cooperation and the many other partners that will be sharing this, the views of Women Deliver with others. And we're doing this in particular in partnership with the Discourse and with Erin Millar, who's joining us, and will be with me. We'll be together all week. So Erin, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the Discourse and what you're hoping to get out of this partnership.
Thank you, Nick. My name is Erin Millar, and I'm the founder and CEO of The Discourse. First and foremost, a journalist who's now become an entrepreneur, in part because within journalism, I felt that there were so many people who weren't being properly served, who are underrepresented in media, including women. And so The Discourse is a digital news media company. We're 5 years old, based here in Vancouver, that is committed to building a model to better serve underrepresented people. We're really proud that 65% of our audience is women, 80% of our team are women. So it's just a delight that CCIC has invited us to partner on this and to be part of joining you the next 5 days, the next 4 days after today, to have really interesting conversations with some of the fascinating people who are going to be at the conference and dig into some of these issues. It's really aligned with what we do. So thank you for having us. And now I would love to invite our two guests to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more, starting with you, who's here from Vancouver as well.
Yeah. So my name is Janice Abbott, and I work for an organization called Atira. I want to start by acknowledging that we're on the unceded and traditional territories of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam people. Atira Women's Resource Society is a women's anti-violence organization. We've been around since 1984. We operate mostly housing, so we manifest our mandate primarily through providing supportive and transitional housing to women and children fleeing violence. We also are a low or no barrier organization, so we work with women and children who are struggling with substance use, struggling with mental and spiritual wellness. Our focus over the last number of years has been finding ways to keep women and children together. We know that about 90% of the women that we house in the downtown east side grew up in the foster care system, and at least as many have lost children to the system. So, which brings me to Women Deliver and why we're really excited. We have a bunch of staff who are attending, really excited to be here, and really excited to focus on how we support women and children women to raise their children and children to be raised by their moms. So grateful to be here.
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Rita Morbia. I'm the co-executive director of Interpares. We are a member of CCIC, based in Ottawa. We're an organization that works globally, and we form relationships with local activist organizations around the world, working on a number of different themes, from food sovereignty to economic justice to women's rights. And one of the things that, we're a feminist organization, so we're particularly excited to be here at Women Deliver because there's 9,000 participants, which is a bit overwhelming, but it's also an incredible opportunity to meet with like-minded folks, to meet with folks who have different perspectives, for this to be I'm hoping for this to be a real deep learning opportunity. We're also sponsoring some activists from Sudan to be here. It's one of the places where we work and we have partnerships, and so it's an amazing opportunity for them as well and for us collectively. I'm looking forward to hearing as well, not just from global voices, but from local voices. Women's organizations doing work like yours locally, Indigenous voices. So I think because of the diversity of who's here, there's a lot of opportunity in terms of learning and connecting.
And that's really one of the things that's amazing about this conference. It's really bringing that Canadian angle and the international angle. And it's an international conference that's come here at a really critical time. With tomorrow the report coming out for missing and murdered Indigenous women, I think it's going to really bring out a lot of the conversations that we know we need to be having and have been having in Canada. So this, maybe we could talk a little bit about that. What does it mean that it's happening in Canada? And what does that mean for us? And any thoughts?
I think that, obviously it's a well-known conference. There's a lot of folks who are here from around the world. I think that most people, particularly internationally, think that, everything is perfect in Canada, that we've conquered oppression and achieved equality, and that we don't have poverty, women aren't oppressed, that racism doesn't exist here. We have this idea of ourselves as Canadians, I think. That we send out to the rest of the world that isn't accurate. And so I think one of the awesome things about, or opportunities about having Women Deliver here is for us to be able to not only meet with and talk with women from around the world, but also acknowledge our own shortcomings as Canadians and in Canada, and hopefully come together as Canadians and find ways forward so that we can there's so much work to be done, but so that we can overcome and work towards equality here in Canada.
Yeah, and you mentioned that the report's coming out tomorrow. That will be the focus of our conversation tomorrow, so please tune in the morning on Tuesday when we'll share that conversation with some really amazing people, and also we'll be on the ground following some of what's actually happening on the ground around the release of the report. So please join us for that. And I'm really glad that you raised particularly the stats around women or children who are impacted by the foster care system. I mean, it's easy for Canada, I think, to look at our history and acknowledge and identify some of the issues of systemic racism and sexism, but a lot of these issues continue to develop, and there's we know that Indigenous children are really overrepresented in the child welfare system, and this is just one of the issues that we really need to tackle. So I agree that one of the more exciting things is about really looking at what's happening in Canada. Some of the events that I'm also most excited about are the local ones, are the ones that are the side events, for example, we're really lucky at the Discourse to be part of SheEO, which is now a global movement, but started here in Canada, that is coming up with a new model for attacking equity in financing of companies by funding female-founded companies. So they'll be doing sharing some of the companies from across Canada and around the world, and what they're doing with Vicky Saunders. So that's one of the events I'm really looking forward to really tackle financing and how can we have more equitable models for financing. But yeah, that's just one of the things that popped out to me. What else are you really looking forward to?
Well, I think it's interesting that this is being held in Vancouver because it's a bit of a microcosm of what's happening globally. There's extreme wealth here, and there's extreme and deep pockets of marginalization and of poverty. It's interesting. It reflects what's happening globally on a certain level. I guess the other thing I'm really interested in is the issue of sexual and reproductive health and rights. That is one of the major themes here at Women Deliver, and I'm part of a group called the Future Planning Initiative as a CCIC, and we've been advocating for more funding and more support from the Canadian government for commitments related to those issues. So I'm interested to see, what the discourse is around that, and whether, those expectations will be realized.
there's so many contextual factors that really come to play here. I mean, we're seeing the political changes, in the U.S., discussion about abortion again, that's really, I think, amplifying some of the conversations that we're having here. I'm marked by the fact that when the planning for Women Deliver started, they didn't expect more than 5,000 delegates, and then they have now hit fire marshal limits at 9,000 and have a waiting list of 3,000, and it's in Vancouver. It's an expensive place to go. It's far. What does that mean for sort of the appetite out there of women's movements, feminist champions for gender equality that want to come together? I think there's a huge appetite. I mean, I'm really excited and humbled to be here because there is so much leadership that's present here in Vancouver. There are so many events. I don't know for you, but I was looking, where do I want to go? And I wish I could tear myself in 10. So where are you going to put some of your time when you're at the conference?
So I think a couple of things. I think one of the reasons that there's so many people here is we're living in a very frightening time. We are, not that racism and white supremacism hasn't always been alive, but it's alive in a way that I haven't witnessed before in my lifetime. We see the erosion of women's rights, we see heightened racism, we see heightened acts of violence. And so I hope that's part of what's bringing us together. It makes you feel hopeful when 9,000 people are getting together to hopefully have a conversation about these things and figure out ways how we can counter what we see going on in the world around us. I would be remiss if I didn't mention a really important side event in Vancouver, which is Feminists Deliver, and it's a bringing together of the local women's organizations, and by local I mean from all over BC, to talk about what's going on here in BC, the things you mentioned, extreme poverty, continuation, the child welfare system is the new 60s scoop, so to talk about what's happening for women, and in particularly women who are racialized in this province and this country. So Feminists Deliver is something that I'm very much looking forward to. My staff who are here all work at a program called Vaccine Right, where we have a community health center, a shelter, a trauma-informed daycare, and second stage housing for women who are pregnant and at risk, struggling with substance use and struggling with mental and spiritual wellness. And again, the goal there is to keep women and kids together. We have an Indigenous doula program, and so it's a really awesome opportunity for us to meet and hopefully learn about what other people are doing that we can apply here. We have so much in common, so much more in common than I think with other women around the world than we understand.
I think as well that there's a sense of commonality between the global and the local, and between different contexts around the world, which is really important. And it's a moment too, I hope, not just for strategizing and for learning, but also for inspiration, for like hearing each other's stories and each other's successes, and there being some momentum for our individual and our collective work.
For sure.
Yeah, just to fill up at a time that is like, it can be very demoralizing at times, right? Be surrounded by that energy.
Which is really palpable here. I mean, since I got here on Friday, I've felt that excitement. People coming together, that sharing. You can see sort of sparks flying between people already. We're seeing it in our membership. And I think we're going to see, certainly for Canada, some interesting announcements here. And I want to just share, I'm looking forward to finding out what is going to come out, and it's already begun. Today, I had the privilege of being at a press conference. I don't know if others were you there or for the launch of the Gender Equality Partnership, and it's just such a huge potential game changer for supporting of women's organizations and women's movements around the world. And this government has taken the initiative and supported the amazing leadership of a consortium of groups that are fighting for women's rights, and actually setting aside the largest funding that Global Affairs has ever given to one organization, $300 million to leverage another $700 million to support firewalled and separate in perpetuity funding for women's movements and women's rights movements in Canada and around the globe. It's never been done, ever, and it's huge. And it could have a massive game-changing impact. It's about core funding. It responds to all the kind of things that NGOs normally are asking about: flexible funding, reduced bureaucratic overhead, reliability, and it's about the grassroots. And that, I think, is significant, and that's today, and the conference hasn't even begun.
I think for me, what's more important about this week, and I don't know if the timing is coincidental or purposeful, and I guess it doesn't matter, but it's about the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Report that's coming out tomorrow. And we know it's been leaked, and I regret that the women and their families weren't the first to hear this information. It would have been more respectful, but it's the way it is. But I think the acknowledgement that what we've seen is a genocide is massively important certainly to First Nations, Métis and Inuit women in Canada, but for the rest of Canada to hear. We also had last week the passage of legislation that acknowledged a right to housing, and the lack of adequate and affordable and safe housing disproportionately impacts women and children, so that's also huge. So there's just a bunch of things in the last week that kind of make this gathering even more exciting than it was 2 weeks ago.
I guess one of the other things I want to mention too is it's a chance for folks globally who are coming here to share their stories and their situations. So the folks we have, the partners we have here from Sudan are in a very, for example, very interesting journey at the moment, right? They're in the midst of a popular uprising, a revolution. They've deposed a 30-year dictatorship, which is incredible, but they're still negotiating around a transitional government. And women have been central to that revolution in Sudan. They have been key. The question is, are they going to be at the table, when the negotiations actually happen and the political decisions around what their country, what their future is going to look like? And, for some of the activists, we're hearing the same story over and over again, that, women have been central in that struggle in terms of getting to where they are at the moment. But in terms of having a place at the table, there is still this sense that there's barriers. There's many barriers in the way, So it's really important as well for folks from around the world to see, okay, we're, that there are many struggles that we share, that those difficulties, but that there are folks moving forward, and perhaps collectively we can gain inspiration and momentum.
And I think one of the other really great things, I've had the privilege to travel, and I think we're very ethnocentric in Canada, or in the Western world. We think that everything inspiring and awesome and innovative happens in the Western world. And there's an opportunity here to begin to understand and hear those stories. There are so many amazing women around this world with so little who do so much. And it's an opportunity for us in the Western world to hopefully understand that we're not the only ones by a long shot who are doing interesting and innovative and amazing things.
That's great.
Yeah, and the partnerships that will come out of here will just amplify those voices, hopefully help us to bring something beyond. Because it's a conference. It has to have a legacy. It has to have impact beyond. Many people have said to me that the real impact of this conference begins on Friday when it's over, and what we can do afterwards.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask. One more question of you all, which is just if there was one concrete thing that came out of this, one thing that you're trying to make happen or looking to see happen in the next few days, what would that be? And I know I'm really looking forward to amplifying some of these stories that you're talking about through our journalism and through this opportunity as well, and hearing from some of the amazing women from around the world who have come gathered here to do this cross-pollination. So what is one thing that you would love to see come out of this? So then we'll tie it up.
You're forcing us to pick just one.
I'm
All right.
going to defer to you.
Yeah, defer.
And I'm going to be subversive and say there's 3 things I'm looking forward to.
Well, we didn't expect any of these feminists just to toe the party line, right?
So number one is just the learning opportunities. I'm looking on a whole range of different issues, from data accountability to sort of practical strategies around advocacy work, etc. So the deep learning. The second is to make those connections. I'm really looking forward to meeting new people and connecting people I already know with one another, because a number of them are here. And third is the inspiring stories. I'm looking to leave Friday on a positive note, on a high.
And since you took 3, I'm just going to do 1. and I'm going to actually repeat one. You said, for me, it's about meeting and connecting with and listening to and hearing all of the with 9,000 women. I just can't even imagine the stories that are available to us this week and the inspiration. And the hope is to listen and to learn and to make those connections and be inspired by everything that happens here.
Erin, what about you?
I didn't think of an answer because I thought I had already done it by saying that I was looking forward to the stories. I think for me, well, actually, here's a little plug for Discourse. We're actually celebrating our 5-year birthday on Wednesday. So, and one of the reasons that we picked this week to celebrate it was because there's so many of our partners in town who've really been part of our story. So, one concrete thing that I'm looking forward to is having the opportunity to pause for a moment. There's some amazing journalists here who have used storytelling to really lead to change. From women who were part of amplifying and defying state censorship during the Tahrir Square uprisings, to a photojournalist who was really part of popularizing the movement around child brides. Like, just amazing inspiration for me as a journalist. So I'm looking forward to that, and then bringing together some of the people who have really worked with us to establish a new kind of feminist media organization on Wednesday for our birthday. So
I love it because you remind me that we all come at this with a different lens, but that the issues of gender equality always resonate. And so we're coming from different places, but these topics apply everywhere that we go. And there are just so many different kind of people and profiles and histories that are here. What I'd like to do is just say, if I have one, because amplifying everything you've said, I would love to say all of those, but I hope that there will be commitments here that last.
Yeah.
I hope that the political leadership that comes here can put in place some things that will really have an impact in the long run. And I think of investments in mother, newborn, and child health. I think about investments in SRHR, sexual and reproductive health and rights, that can have an impact over the long run. And I hope that this moment is a platform for that, and I'll be looking for that. I hope we'll be able to talk about some good news around progress that's being made here at the conference.
I'll just end on one thing, and that is that if you've got questions or stories or issues that you think we should be digging into, or you're on site at Women Deliver and insights and things that you've heard that you'd like to share with us, then you can do that at the hashtag on Twitter, Women Views from Women Deliver. That's hashtag Views from Women Deliver, and we'll do our best to reflect that in our programming over the next few days.
Well, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.